trying to implement a philosophy at an academy or a youth level, it's really important to know what the future game is going to look like in 10 years' time. These kids now that are our U13s, what's the game going to look like at the elite level by the time they're 18, 19 years of age? So if we try and prepare players for what the game looked like 10 years ago, it looks completely different to what it does now. In terms of, if you're looking at the future game, teams are having 70% possession, 65-70% possession. The top teams, they're up to 500 passes a game. Most individuals are getting a completion of over 85%. So if we're preparing the players for what it looked like years ago, we're not preparing them for where we want them to go. The aim of our academy is to produce as many top grade players as possible. So when I say top grade, players who can play internationally, players who can play in Europe, players who can play in the MLS, players who can play in the Champions League. So that's our end game, that's our end goal, that's what we want to prepare players for, technically, tactically, physically, psychologically. So that is the whole aim of our programme. So we have to know what the game is going to look like in 5 or 10 years' time. If you're looking at the most predicted game changes throughout the last 15 years, I think teams block the middle of the pitch better than ever before. They're more compact, they're more rigid, they're stronger, they're faster to get into a block. So we need to be able to create players who can play in that jungle, who can play in that in those tight spaces. All the top players in the world are the ones who can play within that block, who can operate and create and have got freedom of expression inside that block. We have to be able to prepare players for that. The systems at every age group are built around the best players, but the players that we have are our disposable at every age. So, for example, if we've got 2 strikers, we're not going to make one of them play out wide in a 4-3-3. Our 18s, for example, have got a lot of central midfielders, so we have to find a way of playing a higher number of midfielders. So it might be a 4-3-2-1, which we played at the start of the year, like a Christmas tree. It might be 3-box-3, where we've got 2 6s and 2 10s. It doesn't really matter to us, the system. What we say to the coaches, it's based around the players that you have. How can you get the best players in the best areas of the field where they can impact the most? For me, you can't have one without the other, and especially you can't have individual without having the team style right and the team philosophy and the team principles. If you get the style right and the team principles collectively right, you get individual development, but you have to focus on both. We have different stages of creating a very specific type of philosophy that we want at the club. So again, whether it's U9s, whether it's U18s, we have set principles that we have at every age, regardless of the system, regardless of the numbers, it doesn't matter. The principles are identical, the principles are the same. So we want to dominate the ball. We want to have a minimum of 65-70% of the ball in games. We want to be in the opposition's half for as long as possible, where they are in a low block, where they can't get out with and without the ball. So we're controlling them in terms of the spaces, we're controlling them in terms of where they are operating. It's not quite as easy as saying, right, we want 70% possession. So what's important to us is that the kids understand that we have 5 different stages of achieving 70% possession. So stage 1 is getting to the half. So playing from the back, can we get to the half as fast as possible? Beginning with real aggressive positioning and ultimate belief in that we're going to keep the ball. So whether it's a back 3 and the centre backs are splitting and then one goes in between, whether it's a back 4 and the centre backs go out wide and the full backs are going higher, we ask the full backs to go 1-2 metres behind the opposition's wingers to really create space, and every yard you take them back creates an extra yard for the centre backs to get on the ball. If their wingers are starting to come and jump, or they play with 2 strikers who are jumping, centre backs drop down the box. So for us, it's about recognising that our back line really determine the length of the field that we're playing in, and we play from the back at every opportunity. But the playing from the back isn't for aesthetic reasons. It isn't just to look good. It isn't because it's fashionable and Pep Guardiola does it. It's got function, and the function is to get to the half as fast as possible with possession of the ball, with controlled possession, with comfortable possession. So we ask them, first of all, to have ultimate belief in that real aggressive positioning. After that, it's about, can we recognise when to slow down and when to speed up the game? So not playing at 1 speed, can we draw pressure in? Do we understand when to play 1 touch? Do we understand when to play 2 touch? Do we understand when to slow it down? And that is evident in every one of our sessions, where we ask our centre-backs and deep midfielders to be able to recognise when to speed up and when to slow down play. Within that as well, centre backs, can we step in? So if you've got an overload, if you've got space in front, can we step in? So as well as recognising, as well as getting the big shape, as well as recognising when to outplay 1v1, as well as recognising when to speed it up and when to slow it down, can you recognise when to step in and create an overload in midfield? So that's another really, really important thing for us. Within that as well, we have certain principles in terms of the collective methods of getting to the half. So you might have to circulate the ball 4 or 5 times before you get there. You have to be really, really patient in terms of taking your time to get to the half, and once we're at the half, that then becomes stage 2 of our philosophy of 70% possession. So stage 2 is, what's our movement structure like ahead of the ball? So what's our positioning like? How do we occupy the spaces? How are we going to For me, it's not quite as simple as playing a diamond, playing a box. It's not quite as simple as just the system. If you're playing a 4-3-3, it might be the wingers who come inside. If you 3-box-3, it might be, right, they've gone man for man and dropped in, so now the false nine's got to come in. So it's about creating players who are tactically flexible enough to have a certain structure and understand how they occupy spacing, but then be really flexible within that structure to be able to overload, and freedom to be able to move within that structure and get on the ball. So it isn't as simple as you've got a diamond, this is your setup. If you have set movement patterns, I believe that it becomes predictable. For good coaches will see the movement patterns. If you've got certain triggers for people to drop in and rotate, it becomes predictable. And you have players who can only function then within the setup that you have, rather than teaching them principally that they can then take out of that and then adapt it in another system. So right from U9s, we have principles in terms of our movement of reacting to each other and reacting to space and reacting to how you draw an opponent in. So that really begins with 2v2 possession with 2 targets either side, playing on 2 different lines, playing on opposite movements, reacting to each other. That then progresses into 3v3, playing on 3 different receiving lines. So it's not just a focus of a midfield, it's a focus of, right, if the winger's really high and the fullback's going, his run has to come inside rather than on the outside. If the wingers come inside, he has to go on the outside. So it's getting people to react to each other and react to how the opposition work in a minimum of 2 players, rather than us giving them a set system and saying, right, 6 gets on the ball, that's your channel, that's your channel. You don't operate outside that. You can move horizontally and vertically here. We're really trying to create an expressive, creative type of player who can adapt to any system and be tactically flexible. That was something that when I was at Wigan, that Roberto Martinez was huge on, that tactical flexibility, and be able to create players who can play within any system, with any format, with any style. Our movement is kind of the second phase of it, and occupying certain spaces. The next stage after that is after the movement structure, final third. So how do we actually, we've got the opposition on the edge of the box, how do we actually get in behind them? So is it someone getting turned in between the lines and sliding them through? What's our centre forward's movement like? Is it an overlap around the outside from a fullback? Is it an underlap if the winger's tight on the line? Is it an underrun from a centre midfielder? Is it a play into a centre forward and receive a tight one and then we run straight past him? So all these little combinations and little methods of really getting in behind an opposition is kind of the focus of the next stage for us, and that's the one that usually, in my experience, that usually takes the longest for the players to understand. So we can get to the half, our movement structure's right, our attacking balance, our positional play is really good, we're occupying the right spaces, we're occupying spaces to receive the ball, but also in a position to counter press. So centre midfielders are finding good distances, centre backs are really locking on the moment they're not needed. So the moment a midfielder gets turned and they start travelling towards the goal, the centre backs are thinking now, what if? So what if my players lose it? Worst case scenario. So once your attacking balance is right and you're filling the right spaces out, how do we break them down? In terms of the next stage, so transition work. So we give the ball away. What are our principles as soon as we give it away? So regains. Go and press the ball, go to the ball, go and steal it back. Don't let the opposition get in that shape that they want. So keep them within that compact structure as fast as possible by getting pressure on the ball, by not letting them out of the half, by really squeezing and keeping them that territory and keeping that territory with our pressing. when we steal it, don't give it them back. So the majority of top teams, the stats say that they give it back within 5 passes. So we work on a principle of as soon as we win it wherever we are, we offload it and move it out the pressure zone as fast as possible. And you're either looking to move it out the pressure zone to retain, to get that big open shape again, and then we're killing them with the ball again. Or when we're looking to break and counter-attack. So principle on the transition of, are we trying to counter or are we trying to regain to get our open shape again, to open that field out so now the opposition are running again. And then the stage after that is defensive phase, which we want to be in the least amount as possible. So we are in a block, we're defending in our own half, and we say to our players, if we get the other stages right in terms of playing from the back, getting to the half, movement ahead of the ball, constant penetration in behind, repressing when we lose it, keeping it when we regain it, we find that we want to be in that a minimum of 20% of the game. So we don't want to be defending, we want to be offensive, we want to be creative, we want to be the team that's always dominant, the team that's in control of the game, the team that's deciding what happens. So that's our collective style, if you like. The individual side then is really, really important. So once the collective style's right, how is the individual developing? So what's his identity as a player? If he's a winger, is he a winger who delivers early because he hasn't got the pace? So is he a David Beckham who's an outstanding crosser of the ball in space and looks to play early? Is he a winger who goes on the outside or inside like Ronaldo? Is he, if he's a centre midfielder, is he your ball winner and your killer in the middle who steals it and wins everything and screens and gives it to the better players? Is he the one with a range of pass like a Pirlo who dictates and controls, or a Paul Scholes? Is he a box-to-box player, or is he like a creative player like a Coutinho or a Hazard playing inside? So we try and make sure that our players have got an identity and they are making sure that they've got an elite quality that's going to get them in any team. They've got a world-class quality. They are an expert in some area of the game, not just okay and not just good at everything. With that then, you've got to make sure that your weaknesses are not keeping you out of a team. So if you've got a glaring weakness, so we give them individual plans in terms of what's your overall target, what's your realistic target. So if you're a U12, that might be different than a U18 who's closer to the first team. So what is a realistic target for you long term to have? Working backwards from that, if you've got a realistic target, what are the steps that you're going to take to get there? So what do you need along the way? Is it what specific individual work do you need in terms of trying to get that identity? What type of players do you need to be watching if that is your identity at the elite level? Have you got a role model that might be within the group or an older group, or have you got a role model at the top level? What types of practice are you doing every single day to make sure that you're getting closer to having that real identity? So what are you working on? Not only making sure that you haven't got this glaring weakness, but making sure that you're working on your strength every single day. So these this individual side is really, really important. But for me, you can't work independently. The collective style has to be right to bring the best of the individual style out. The individual can only work if the collective style is right. So if I'm a centre back and I want to play at the elite level, and going back to what we spoke about earlier, knowing that what the qualities are that the elite level will be demanding in 5 years, I have to be able to step in with the ball, I have to be able to defend 1v1, I have to be able to recognise which the free player is, I have to be able to recognise first line of midfield but also playing the next line. So we have to make sure that we're not only relating to the game, what it's going to look like in years' time, but we're getting the individual star out and we're getting the collective star out, and they come together, and that brings the best out of the individual. So I get asked the question a lot, is it individual or is it team? It's neither, it's both, and they have to come together. The 1v1 programme originated at Wigan Athletic, working under Roberto Martinez. This was kind of his baby, this was his big thing, and it was a great education for me. So a defender, when I say a defender, an opposing player can be in one of 4 different, or 5 different positions, but 4 with the ball. It can be in front, so your classic Ronaldo. It can be behind, which is the most common. 86% at the elite level is with defender behind, receiving with defender behind. It can be on the side, so your Cruyff turns and your step overs. It can be on the covering angle, so if I'm getting if somebody's going pressing the ball, there's always a second man here who's in a covering position, which is on the angle. So you outplay one and now he's coming from an angle. Or the last one is dominating without the ball in terms of movement. How do I dominate my opponent? How do I take him away to come short? What are my movements like off his shoulders, behind, out of the eye line? How do I come and arrive in the space? Or how do I really dominate my opponent with and without the ball? That progressed a lot when I worked at Liverpool under Pep Lijnders and Alex Inglethorpe, and that was a huge part of their philosophy in terms of being able to outplay an individual. So, right, I'm receiving under pressure. Can I get out of a situation? Have I got a solution technically to get out of a situation? So we want to create a player who is, he's got freedom and it's kind of an unformed expression. It's a creative, kind of efficient, just an unformed way of staying on the ball. It's not dribbling, it's not taking people on, it's not necessarily the Ronaldo defender in front on the side to cross or to get shots on goal. It is more, can I outplay someone to stay on the ball? If there's no solution for me in the game, which happens a lot, have I got the bodywork? Have I got the technique? Have I got the Busquets type drag backs or turns or step overs or Cruyffs to get out of the situation to be able to keep possession? So that'll look different for every position. A striker's, where he's receiving pressure behind, from a centre back is different than a midfielders who might be pressing and receiving on the side. That's going to look different than a defender on the ball who's getting pressed from the front, and he might shape up to play to the full-back and then drag inside. So his cutting technique will be different than the way Coutinho receives in between the lines or the way Busquets receives in deep areas. The 1v1 work is really, really important if we want to create a player who's going to play at the Champions League level, who's going to play at the most elite level of the game. We're not obsessive about it. We have 3 specific things that we look for in games with our 16s and 18s, and the principle of those then go down to the younger age groups, but we don't actually track the individual efficiency and the collective efficiency with the younger ones. They relate to our style and what we want to create. So our style was to counter-attack and break from a regain from a low block. We wouldn't use the stats that we use. So first thing, can we have 70% possession? So that relates to how much of possession do we want to have to make sure that our players are getting what they need. So centre-backs are getting repetition of stepping in, midfielders are getting repetition of receiving under pressure. I could go on, but from a technical point of view, are we getting reps? And at 70% possession, 65-70%, which is what all the elite teams have, we're getting technical reps and tactical reps of what we need. Second one, do we have less than 150 turnovers at the elite level? So the stats that we did showed that Barcelona, Bayern Munich, they have less than 150 turnovers in a game. Can we have less than 150, which means that we're on prolonged sequences and time on the ball? So the first one relates to how much possession we're having and what area of the field oppositions have. The second bit, 150 turnovers, relates to can we stay on the ball for long periods? Can we not be impatient? Can we recognise we're not going to score every attack? Can we circulate the ball? So that relates to time on the ball and what we do with it. And then the third one is, do we get 75% of regains within 5 passes? So every time we lose the ball, can we win it back where the opposition don't get a rhythm of 5? By the time they get 5, they get that big shape. So can we win the ball back within 5 passes every time? And they're the 3 kind of statistical things that we look at.
On behalf of all of us here at St. Louis FC TV and the rest of the Fleur de Lis faithful, thanks for watching.